Hello children, I hope you all are doing well at home and also watching the videos which I am preparing for you. So I am back again today with another video of bio. I have seen few of your questions in my comment box and I have tried to answer them also. That shows a positive approach of yours towards the videos. So the last video we have covered the chapter Cell, the unit of life, and today I am going to start with the next chapter, that is tissues, in which we are going to study few of plants and animal tissues. So let's talk about today's class. In the previous video when we have studied cell, we have come to know that the cells are basic, functional and structural unit of life. That means every living organism is made up of cells. Now, the single cell cannot perform all the tasks for a bigger organisms like us. So, when the cells together lies side by side and they perform a specific task, then we call them tissues. So, to define tissues, tissues are similar kind of cells which perform a specific task. So, all the plants and animals, they possess different kinds of tissues. And if we talk about the function which they perform, like if we talk about ourselves, if we have to move our hand, that means all the cells together of this portion of this organ are going to perform together to move your hand. Now, what is the relation between the organs and the organ systems and the tissues? We start from the very single unit of life, that is the cell. So, the cells together form the tissues and the tissues together they form the organ. Now, these organs together they form the organ system. Like in our body we say that we have different kinds of organ systems, like digestive system we have, respiratory system we have circulatory system, so many systems together to perform different tasks. And these systems together they form an organism. So this is the organization level of organisms. To start from the single unit, that is cell, cell forms the tissues, tissues forms the organs and the organs form the organ system, and with all the organ systems the organism is formed. So this is the relation between the cells, tissues, organs and organ systems. So to start with the chapter, first of all, let us go through the plant tissues. So, in broad category, how we divide the plant tissues. So, let's start with the plant tissues. The plant tissues are divided into two major categories, that is the meristematic tissues and the permanent tissues. Again, the meristematic tissues are further divided into three parts, that is the apical meristematic tissues, the intercalary meristematic tissues and the third cambium, or we call it lateral meristematic tissues. Then we come to the second type, that is the permanent plant tissues. These permanent plant tissues are divided into three parts, that is the protective permanent tissues, the supportive permanent tissues and the conducting permanent tissues. Further, if you see the supportive connective tissues, they are divided into three parts again, that is the parenchymatous cells, the collenchyma and the sclerenchyma. Then we go to the third part, that is the conducting tissues. They are divided into xylem and phloem. So this is the broad category of division of plant tissues. So now one by one we are going to study about these tissues. So the first plant tissue is meristematic tissues. These meristematic tissues are basically found at the growing tips and the shoots of the plant. They are actively dividing cells, and the main characteristics of these cells are they have a very thin cell wall, they have a very large nuclei with them, they are usually cubical in shape, and then they are arranged tightly in the plant. That means they do not have any intercellular space. And these cells actively divide and add new cells. And as we have seen in the chart, these meristematic tissues can be further divided into three parts. The first one is apical meristematic tissues. So here on the screen you can see the picture of apical meristematic tissues. These apical meristematic tissues are found at the tip of the root and at the tip of the shoot, which are actually the growing parts of the plant. They are also found at the axillary tip of the axillary bud, which grows sideways from the stem. Then second are the intercalary meristematic tissues. They are usually found at the nodes from where the leaves arise. Then the third type of meristematic tissues are the lateral meristematic tissues. As you all can see in the picture, these lateral meristematic tissues are also known as cambium. Cambium helps the bark to grow widthwise. The plant grows lengthwise as well as widthwise. So lengthwise the apical meristematic helps and the widthwise cambium helps in the growth. So these were the meristematic tissues. Now we move further. The next kind of plant tissues are the permanent tissues. As the name says, these are actually meristematic tissues, but such meristematic tissues which have lost their ability to divide. And these tissues, they take up a permanent shape or structure to perform a specific task. These tissues could be living. If they are living, they would have a nucleus with them. If not, then the nucleus is absent. According to the function they perform, they are divided further into three categories, that is protective, supportive and conductive permanent tissues. So one by one we will study about these. As the name says, first one are the protective tissues. These protective tissues are there in the plants for the protection. They are usually found at the outer surface of the leaves and the stems, like in the form of epidermis, so that they can protect the plant. Then comes the supportive permanent tissues. Supportive permanent tissues are further divided into three categories according to their function. So the three categories are the parenchyma, collenchyma and the sclerenchyma. Let us study one by one about each with the help of diagram. So the three most important supportive connective tissues are parenchyma, collenchyma and sclerenchyma. The first one is parenchyma. The structure is, they are large, thin-walled cells, oval, circular or sometimes they are polygonal in shape. Usually they have a large single vacuole. Location is, they are found in soft parts of the plant such as in the cortex. Cortex is the outer region of the plant, and in the pith, that is the central region of the plant. They may store food as in potatoes, and the function of these are to provide temporary support to the plant. Then next are the collenchyma. As you see on the screen, they are made up of cells which are elongated and the cell wall is thickened at the corners. They are located in the leaf stalks and below the epidermis of the stems. And the function of these tissues is they help to support the parts of a plant. As we see that since they are found in the leaf stalks, so definitely they are going to support the plant part. Then third type are the sclerenchyma. These are composed of long, narrow cells which have become dead. So you have to keep this in mind that sclerenchymatous cells are dead cells. These cells develop very thick walls due to the deposition of lignin. And the function, this tissue provides strength to the plant parts. It is found in stems and veins of the leaves. So children, these three kind of supportive tissues which you have studied right now, that is the parenchyma, collenchyma and sclerenchyma, they are known as simple tissues. And they are known as simple tissues because they are made up of one kind of cells. So sometimes they are asked you to write the name of simple tissues. So there you have to write any of the name of out of these three supportive tissues. So children, we are studying the permanent tissues. First two types of permanent tissues we have already studied, that is the protective tissues and the supportive tissues. Under supportive tissues we have studied the parenchyma, collenchyma and sclerenchyma. Now we come to the third type of permanent tissues, that is the conducting tissues. In common we also call them vascular bundles. Together when we see them under the microscope, we can see them together, that is why we call them vascular bundles. And these conducting tissues, as the name says, they are responsible in plants to conduct the water and the food material up and down in the plant. So xylem and phloem are the two parts of this conducting tissues. And you must have studied this before also, that xylem is responsible for conducting the water up and down in the plant, whereas phloem is responsible for conducting the food material up and down in the plant. But today we are going to study xylem and phloem, the cells which they are made up of. The xylem tissues, as you can see on the screen, these are elongated and thick-walled. These cells are somewhat in the form of tubular passage. They provide for upward movement of water and dissolved materials absorbed from the soil by the roots to other parts of the plant. Older xylem tissues forms the wood and does not participate in transport. We can determine the age of a tree by counting its annual rings, which actually are the xylem rings, as you can see in the picture. The xylem tissue consists of tracheids and vessels and also called tertiary elements, xylem parenchyma and xylem fibers respectively. So these xylem tissues are made up of more than one cells. So let us see one by one that what these cells do for xylem. First are the tracheids. You can see the picture of tracheids. They are made up of elongated dead cells with large cavities without any contents. The cells are placed end to end, forming a long tube. They have highly lignified cell walls. They provide mechanical support by developing various types of thickenings in their walls. Next type of cells are xylem vessels, or we call them tracheae. They are long tube-like structures meant for transporting water and dissolved materials. They are made up of elongated cells placed end to end. Their cell walls are quite hard, thick and lignified. Transverse walls get dissolved and make a continuous water pipe. These are xylem vessels. Then comes the third kind of cells. They are xylem parenchyma. They consist of living parenchyma cells associated with the xylem. These cells serve for the storage of food, that is in the form of sugars and starch, and also help in the conduction of water and minerals. So these are the cells which are found in xylem tissues. So children, these are the cells associated with xylem, that is the tracheids, xylem vessels and the xylem parenchyma. Next type of conducting tissues are phloem. So now let's study about phloem tissues. Phloem tissues provide a passage for the downward movement of food manufactured in the leaves to various parts of the plant. They also provide for the upward movement of the prepared food towards the growing new leaves. So the phloem consists of different kinds of cells, which are sieve tubes, companion cells, phloem parenchyma cells and phloem fibers. So the picture you can see on the screen. Now locate these. The first one is the sieve tubes. These are made up of elongated cells placed end to end, forming a long tube. The transverse walls are perforated and called sieve plates. Children, perforated means they have holes in them. They help in the transport of food from leaves to storage organs and other parts of the plant. Then comes the companion cells. Living parenchyma cells closely associated with sieve tube cells. They help in the functioning of the sieve tube cells. Phloem parenchyma, they help. These are made up of parenchymatous tissues, as the name is coming parenchyma. So they are made up of parenchymatous tissues found associated with phloem, mainly concerned with storage of starch, fat and other organic food material. Then the last type of cells are the phloem fibers. These are sclerenchymatous tissue found associated with phloem. They mainly provide support. So these are the cells of phloem. So the phloem tissue consists of sieve tubes, companion cells, phloem parenchyma and phloem fibers. Now these two together, that is the xylem and the phloem, forms the vascular bundle of the plant. The veins which you can see in the plant or in the leaf are the example of xylem and phloem. This xylem and phloem in continuation forms the veins of the leaves. Now these two tissues, they are also known as complex tissues since they are made up of more than one cells. Whereas just now we have studied the supportive tissues which are made up of one type of cells, they are simple tissues. So here we end with the plant tissues. So children, in this video we have studied about the plant tissues and the division of the plant tissues. So it's your turn now to learn first of all the names of the tissues. Secondly, what comes from this chapter in exam is the location and the function of each tissue. You have to learn the location and function of each tissue as well as the structure. It comes for the identification in exams. So for the exam point of view, this chapter is very important. So you have to go through this twice or thrice and then learn. Secondly, you have to learn the name along with the spelling of each tissue. In exams, when one word kind of questions come, then you have to write absolutely correct spelling of each term. So you have to focus on the spelling also. So hope that you are going to learn everything which I have told you. So be safe and happy at home. Thank you.